why does Vyasadeva bother to put Canto 1 as the Canto 1? This specific topic of Adhikari Tattva is the foremost topic of the Canto 1. What does Adhikari Tattva means? What is the qualifications of the person who speaks Bhagavatam and the person who listens Bhagavatam? So that is very much clarified in this first canto, because without a proper methodology, no study can achieve its actual purpose. So Srila Vyasadeva utilizes Suta Goswami and Shaunakadi Rishi's conversation to establish what is the methodology of approaching Srimad Bhagavatam. What is the methodology to understand Srimad Bhagavatam? And it is very similar to the topic of what is the qualification that is required for the speaker and listener. And it's a very elaborate topic. I will come to it after covering other points. And this is the Adhikari Tattva. And then it also, as I explained earlier, this Canto 1 also explains the background of Shukadeva Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj, glories of Bhagavatam, history of Bhagavatam, and all of those things. Additionally, it describes two other topics. That is, Bhagavatam is considered as a continuation of Mahabharata, rather a clarification of Mahabharata. And Madhvacharya himself, in his Bhagavata Tatparya Nirnaya, states that how Bhagavat is the actual conclusion of Mahabharata. And Srimad Bhagavatam is carrying forward that conclusion of Mahabharata, which is the glories of devotees and devotion. Somehow it gets lost in the vast ocean of Mahabharata. So that is why Bhagavatam extracts that essence and rescues that essence and takes it forward and establishes that conclusion of the glories of devotion and the devotees in a very clear way in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That is one reason. And the other one is the glories of bhakti. That Canto 1 wants to glorify the process of bhakti and wants to establish who's the object of study. So that is covered through the prelude where absolute truth is described. However, Bhagavatam Canto 1 describes the glories of bhakti through specifically chosen devotees. When we want to bring out the glories of devotees, we show how great personalities are practicing bhakti and what are their personal qualities and how great they are. By showing their greatness, indirectly we show the greatness of devotional service. Mother Gail?
Maybe by showing examples of how bhakti brought people who were of a very degraded position into a very exalted position.
Amazing. Yes, that's the next strategy that the Bhagavatam uses, that bringing out bhakti's natural qualification is knowledge, that naturally it gives rise to knowledge and detachment. What you call jnana and vairagya. So that's a natural symptom of bhakti. And that usually is not available. It's not very commonly observed in this world. Anyone has great knowledge about the supreme absolute truth or in life in general and has detachment. These two qualities are very rare. And just by practicing bhakti, naturally anyone can achieve these qualities. And that is why Srimad Bhagavatam chooses the personalities it chooses to glorify bhakti.
Uttara.
Oh.
Uttara, yes.
Bhishma
Dev.
Queen Kunti
Kunti Devi.
Yes, Mother Kunti is one of the most prominent figures. Anyone else?
Draupadi.
Yes, of course. Draupadi is also there. Uttara, Draupadi, Kunti. Any other personalities that comes and showcases their knowledge and detachment in the Canto 1?
Third Muni. Yudhishthir Maharaj.
Yudhishthir. So as you all said, Mother Kunti, Uttara and Draupadi and the queens of Hastinapur and the queens of Dwarka, these are all ladies. And in the Vedic tradition, ladies are usually not taught the Vedas. So they are not going to Gurukul and they are not studying Vedas. So they are usually considered as not as, I'm speaking in terms of academically, I'm not saying women are less intelligent. I'm being politically correct here. What I'm meaning is they are not as well given the opportunities to study like how other men were able to study. So women did not go to Gurukul. So it might be usually considered that they may lack transcendental knowledge. However, Bhagavatam uses the very first personalities that who offer prayers to Krishna in the Canto 1 of Bhagavatam is Uttara and Kunti Maharani. And especially Mother Kunti, her life was very tough. And she does state what kind of difficulties she went through in her life in the beginning of her prayers. But the kind of knowledge, the conclusive knowledge of Vedic scriptures that she offers in her prayers is astounding. That even great scholars sit, study, and keep discussing for ages together. That's how deep her prayers are. And she's just, in the worldly view, she's just a normal woman, not just any woman, embroiled in politics of the imperial palaces, and so kind of had such a tormenting life, lost her husband very early, had to raise 5 kids, and had to put up with all the politics of the palace. And one of her eldest son, she had to let him go in the beginning of her life, and then she had to see them fighting, her own sons fighting against each other, all of this turmoil that she went through. And when she expresses the knowledge, what she says, what is the use of all this wealth and beauty and everything? A person who has all these things cannot call you out with feeling. But she's having that feeling. She is saying, I don't want anything. Cut all these attachments. The only attachment I want is with you. Let my mind flow like the river Ganges flows towards the ocean without being stopped by any obstacle. So she's literally stating Ekanta Bhakti, complete focused Bhakti. And the world may consider, oh, she's just another woman, another queen embroiled in politics. No. Here, by showing that how, even in the worldly view, she's just any other woman, especially a woman who's so removed from transcendental knowledge being embroiled in politics, when she opens her mouth, the kind of detachment that she shows and the kind of knowledge that she shows is astounding. So that like, okay, how did you gather this knowledge? It's just through a life of devotion, nothing else. A life dedicated to devotion, that's all was her qualification. So through that, Bhagavatam is showing that we don't need to be scholars. All that we need is a life of devotion dedicated to the practices of bhakti. And the next other personality is Bhishma Dev. Oh, a warrior whose life went in just defending the Kuru dynasty and what not, what amount of politics and what amount of difficulties that he had to go through. And amidst all of that, when he has the great boon to leave his body anytime, and why would anyone suffer in the bed of arrows if they could just leave their body anytime? And people might think he just waited for Uttarayana. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says he waited for the Uttarayan, that is Krishna, the person, the Lord who appeared in the womb of Uttara. That is why he is called as Uttarayan, the Lord who appeared in the womb of Uttara to save Parikshit. He was waiting for that Lord to appear. The Lord Uttara, now Uttarayan, to appear so that he could actually live in the presence of Krishna. That any other warrior will not get that boon, that Krishna personally came there and stood before him smiling, showing his smiling face to Bhishma Dev so he could meditate on the face of the Supreme Lord and leave his body. What kind of a fortune is that? Who gets that? And how great Bhishma Dev must be to be able to get that benediction. And the kind of knowledge he gives, 50% of Bhagavatam is, 50% of Mahabharata is what Bhishma Dev speaks on the battlefield while lying on the arrow bed. And he says literally, now that you have all this knowledge and devotion, why did he take the side of the Pandavas? Draupadi asks. So for that, Bhishma Dev says, now that my blood, which was nourished by the food of Duryodhan, is all drained from my body, I have got the better intelligence now. He's just saying out of humility. So the kind of knowledge that he speaks to Yudhishthira Maharaj, to that extent that Yudhishthira could not be convinced by Supreme Lord, but he got convinced by Bhishma Dev. So Krishna is establishing the glories of Bhishma and indirectly establishing the glories of devotion. If someone led a life of devotion, that Krishna, the knowledge about Krishna is a byproduct. Detachment from this material world is a byproduct. And mercy of Krishna is their rightful claim. It is their inheritance, that if due to their life of devotion. So that's what the Canto 1 is describing. And we will see that there are, now let's come back to Adhikari Tattva. So now we saw that in short, that how Bhagavatam Canto 1 establishes the glories of bhakti through various devotees. Like the queens of Hastinapur, they're just queens, but they speak Vedic truths. The queens of Dwarka, again, complete Vedic truths. And in this way, again establishes the glories of bhakti. And then the most important topic, Adhikari Tattva, I want to cover it in short this week. That if you carefully read Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1, you will see this recurring theme of a speaker speaking Srimad Bhagavatam to a listener. Can you, from your studies, guess how many times or what are the various instances of Srimad Bhagavatam being spoken in Canto 1 by one person to another person? At least two we know. What are they?
Sukadev Goswami to
Yes,
Parikshit
Shukadev
Maharaj.
Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. Yes,
Sutta,
one.
Sutaji and
Sutta.
Yes, yes,
Sanakadi.
Sutta and Shaunakadi rishis. Yes.
Sanakadi.
Then
Is Vidura and Maitri also starting in first canto, Prabhu, or is that later?
no, that is in third canto.
Narada to Vyas.
Narada to Vyasadev. Yes. When Vyasadev is confused, Narada Muni speaks Bhagavatam.
And Vyasdev to Sukdev Goswami.
Yes, Vyasadev to Shukadev Goswami also. Any other examples of someone speaking spiritual knowledge to another person?
Not a Bhagavatam, but yes.
Yeah, not that part actually. Yes, that is also there, but specifically
Vidura, Dhritarashtra.
Dhritarashtra and Vidura can be taken as a side example, which will be helpful to bring a particular concept. Yes, there's one other person who heard Narada Muni heard from the Bhaktivedantas. So these are some
Vidura and Buddhava, right?
That is later in the third canto.
Oh, third canto.
So not right in the first canto. So all these instances of Shukadev Goswami speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, Sutta Goswami speaking to Shaunakadi rishis, Vyasadev speaking to and Narada Muni speaking to Vyasadev, Narada Muni hearing from the Bhaktivedantis, all these 5 or so iterations, it is all found right in the first canto. And why is it? Why is it that these things are again and again repeated, that someone listening, someone speaking? Because every time you see this particular iterations come, elaborate descriptions of the qualifications of the speaker and the qualifications of the listener will be given. If you had read the Canto 1 already, you will know in the first canto, first chapter, elaborate glorification of Sutta Goswami is given. Why is he qualified to speak? And again, when Narada Muni listens it from Bhaktivedantis, elaborate qualification of Narada Muni, how he was, even though he was very young, he was not frivolous, he was so focused and he was so humble and he was serving. All the qualities of Narada Muni will be described. And then qualities of Shukadev Goswami, how detached he was right from his birth, that will be described. Parikshit Maharaj's qualities, oh my God, it's chapter after chapter after chapter of his qualifications, why he became qualified to be that person in the history of the main receiver of Srimad Bhagavatam. And as someone else said, that the discussion between Vidura and Dhritarashtra brings out this thing, that how, because of the disqualification of Dhritarashtra, that Vidura could not speak Bhagavatam to Dhritarashtra. The Vidura came all the way after hearing Bhagavatam from Maitreya Muni, from the bank of Yamuna to the bank of Ganges, to meet Dhritarashtra. However, he did not speak the same knowledge that he received from Maitreya Muni. which is Srimad Bhagavatam actually. However, he did not speak that to Dhritarashtra because Dhritarashtra's heart was so polluted by his offenses towards the devotees that he was not qualified to hear, and his heart was not fertile enough to listen to it. So Vidura had to adjust and speak about Ashtanga Yoga and had to convince him that at least give up this material life. It's not worth living like a dog, living off the remnants fed by Bhima, whom you wanted to kill once. This is totally a wretched life. Don't live like this. Get out of this home and practice some kind of renunciation and inch towards liberation in some way. And to the credit of Dhritarashtra, he accepts it and goes to this place called as Saptashrota and leaves his body and achieves actually liberation. So, but he was not qualified for devotion because of his offenses. However, all the other listeners, they were all qualified because they were humble, they were eager, they were not offensive. So that is the reason they were favorable. So that is why they could hear Bhagavatam. And also the speakers, how qualified they were: Shukadeva Goswami, Vyasadeva, Narada Muni, and Sutta Goswami. However, again, this is another layer that we need to focus, that each of these combination of speakers and listeners, they have different kinds of qualifications. Am I overwhelming you guys? Is it confusing? Any clarifications needed?
Only one, Prabhu. So you mentioned that Vyasadeva spoke it to Shukadeva Goswami, right?
Yes.
So is that the first version then? When first spoken from these three sets of speakers?
After he heard from Narada Muni, that is the first instance. After he, in his own meditation, saw Bhagavatam, he first spoke to Shukadeva. That is one of the first versions, you could say. Okay. Coming back to this qualifications, within the Bhagavatam Canto 1, if you see, the first pair that converses is Sutta Goswami and Shaunaka Rishis. And then will come Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. In between will be Vyasadeva and Shukadeva Goswami. So let's stick to few of these pairs of listener and hearer. If you see the immediate pair of speakers and listeners, Sutta Goswami and Shaunaka Rishis, here the listeners are off in a beginner stage, because Shaunaka Rishis are considered inquisitive and they do have some amount of material desires. Their heart is not fully purified. So if you see the first chapter, the qualification of the rishis are not so much spoken about. It is just the qualification of the speaker is mentioned, because in the initial stage, the listener does not have much qualification. So if you go behind the qualification of this listener, then there is no hope. So in that case, in the beginning stages, the speaker has to be a qualified speaker. Of course, you are all unfortunate, but this is the best you have got. However, that is why it becomes better that when we hear from very advanced devotees that Srimad Bhagavatam, it immediately churns something in our heart. So that is why it is very important that we go into a huge assembly of devotees and we hear from very advanced devotees in holy places, because we want as much as external qualification as possible, because we lack it. So we can compensate it by going into the dham, hearing it from a very advanced devotee in the association of hundreds of devotees. So all of that will help us create an impression of the bhakti in our hearts, because we ourselves don't have any qualification. So that is why if you see, the chapter 1 does not go into the details of the qualification of the listener at all. It only speaks about the qualification of the speaker. However, when it comes to the stage of Vyasa listening from Vyasadeva listening from Narada Muni, there Narada Muni will actually chastise Vyasadeva. Despite knowing everything, what kind of a nonsense you are, you didn't speak about bhakti very clearly. So he chastises him upfront, because here the qualification is higher. Vyasadeva is already qualified, so the spiritual master is tough. Hey, you know what is the right thing, why are you not doing? So when we get some amount of knowledge about bhakti and we are cruising around and we are wasting time, so then we will be chastised for it. So when the knowledge comes, then the spiritual master will be stern. hey, I gave you initiation. So what are you doing? Where are your regulative principles? Where is your chanting? Where is your studying of the scriptures? Why are you not taking it seriously? The spiritual master has a very stern kind of a voice, because we already know some basics and the qualification has been given to us. And if we don't take seriously, then chastisement comes. And the next level, when Vyasadeva speaks to Shukadeva Goswami is so renounced that he is more renounced than Vyasadeva from the vision of the ladies who are bathing when when Vyasadeva runs behind Shukadeva Goswami, who was just born and he already left to the world. He is not even dressed. He has absolutely no bodily consumption. And in this, by the statement of the ladies, they consider Shukadeva Goswami more renounced than Vyasadeva. So there is no qualification of here, like they both are qualified. That the flow is very natural. The Bhagavatam flows very natural between Vyasadeva and there is affection of being father and son. So when there is Sajatiya Sangha, when the speaker is also qualified, when the hearer is also qualified, and when the speaker has love for the listener, concern for the listener, and the listener also has respect for the speaker, then the message of Bhagavatam flows much smoothly. And the other pair of speaker and listener is Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. And this is one of the best pairs, because Shukadeva Goswami is so renounced and so advanced, and he is literally the parrot of Radharani. He is so absolutely spiritually advanced to speak Bhagavatam. And Parikshit Maharaj is also so very qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why in this last stage of example, Parikshit Maharaj's qualification is described a lot more than Shukadeva Goswami. Because here, Shukadeva Goswami is not going to speak anything less than, like, he's eventually going to go to the stage of Madhurya Rasa in just 7 days. So Parikshit Maharaj already is on a very high level. So that's why he could in 7 days go to the level of Madhurya Rasa. And Shukadeva Maharaj Goswami could speak all that higher truths. And that is why Parikshit Maharaj's qualification is described a lot in Canto 1. From chapter 7 to chapter 18, the only all those chapters are indirectly speaking the glories of Parikshit Maharaj. From chapter 7 to chapter 18 is all glories of Parikshit Maharaj in one way or other. And we will see that when we go into the detailed summary of Canto 1. So this is the thematic summary of Canto 1, that Canto 1 provides the prelude and history of Bhagavatam, its supremacy over other Puranas, glories of Bhakti, and in elaborate, it gives the Adhikari Tattva. Okay, you are very interested in speaking Bhagavatam, you are very interested in hearing Bhagavatam, but what is the qualification required? What is the methodology for it? And it gives the background of Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, and it is also considered as a continuation of Mahabharata and conclusion of Mahabharata. So this is the thematic summary of Canto 1, and we are way over time. So we will do the Canto summary next week, the elaborate Canto 1 summary next week.